Tonight on Cosmic Cantina, we break down the new Dr. Stephen Greer film, The Cosmic Hoax, where he lays out his theory on what's happening with this whole disclosure thing. We also talk to one of the stars of the film, Paula Harris, and get her take on this UAP phenomenon. Could it all be one giant evil agenda used to manipulate humanity? Geez, I hope not. We go into stories of dark and negative interactions with UFOs, but is it actually our space bros who are responsible? Then finally, what's been predicted to happen this month in regards to alien visitation? Find out on an all-new Cosmic Cantina.
I'm your host, Melissa Tittle, and every week I go to my favorite bar, Cosmic Cantina, and kick back with my co-hosts, Josh Golombeski and Matt O'Connor. We talk about aliens, Bigfoot, ghosts, ancient cultures, and anything from the unseen world that needs a little illumination.
Welcome to Cosmic Cantina. I'm your host, Melissa Tittle, and I have to apologize because I currently don't have a microphone because I'm in Boston. They don't have microphones in Boston, but they have a lot of drinks.
Oh, wow. That's like
Wicked
they don't
pizza.
have internet in Australia.
Yeah,
I feel your pain.
no microphone. So it's going to be bad audio. I apologize. I am drinking water because I had a little too much Boston fun last night.
Ooh.
Oh,
All right.
one too many Sam Adams. Well, guys, I have to break something down. I'm a little disappointed in myself. I got back together with one of my exes that we all disapproved of. Her name is Ghostfish, and she is back in my life. She called me at 2 in the morning.
Sometimes,
Look at the snuggle.
sometimes you got to dip back into the old black book and see what's available. You know. I didn't know where I was going with that.
I like it.
I literally for a second thought Josh was like, what? Josh is married. Oh,
Yeah.
beer. Okay.
All right.
So cheers. It's good. It's a double IPA. It's actually really good. Ghostfish. Always in my heart.
All right.
What about you, Matt?
I myself picked up a Washington cider from Schilling Hard Ciders. It's called Local Legend, and it's got a Bigfoot on there.
It does.
Literally the only reason I picked this up, and it's actually pretty good. I'm enjoying this.
Of course it is.
Anyway, Bigfoot cider. Here we go.
Right on.
All right, guys. Well, tonight we're breaking down Stephen Greer's new movie, Cosmic Hoax.
Yes, we are.
I have an exclusive interview with Paula Harris, so that should be fun. She's one of the 3 people that are interviewed in this film, so that should be kind of cool. And you guys got some cool stuff.
I do. Josh really loves, yes, I just referred to myself in the third person. Josh really loves his hoaxed alien abduction talk. Like, I just, some odd reason, of all the things in the space, that one always like tickles my goat. And in this doc, they go deep into it. And I did some serious research on what it could all mean. And I actually talked to Richard Doty, who's another person in this film, who's one of the few people to confirm these programs personally in my own life, and asked him some questions as well. And it's going to be interesting. I think it's interesting what he said compared to what Greer's saying. And maybe we can find the truth somewhere in between. I don't know. What about you, O'Connor?
Ooh,
Ew.
exclusive. Okay, so, well, a couple of things that Greer mentions in the film is, he's got this whole idea that there's staged alien abductions, and they mention particularly Brazil. And in conjunction with that, they also bring up this whole idea of cattle mutilations and human mutilations, which is fairly dark. So I have a really horrific doesn't quite cover what the story I have to tell tonight. It comes with a warning, but that'll happen later on. But after that, just to cleanse the palate a little bit, I found some Reddit craziness that relates to some sort of prediction happening later this month. We'll save that for now. I'll save it for the date later. And strap in.
Or on.
I have one more announcement. I hosted a investigative TV show on Discovery Channel Plus. It is going to be airing August 15th, and it is called Alien Invasion Hudson Valley.
I knew it.
Threat-based.
I I gotta explain. So I don't come up with the names of the show. So we are covering Stephen Greer's Cosmic Hoax, which is all the, we're going to talk about how the government is possibly pushing this threat-based narrative. I so happened to be on a show where we were investigating the Hudson Valley and all the UFO experiences that have happened there since 1980. They just so happened to call it Alien Invasion Hudson Valley, but I have nothing to do with the threat base. They just put that on there. But anyway, you should definitely check out the show.
TBD for me. TBD.
I'll be watching. I'm going to watch the hell out of that, but
Yeah. All right. That's okay. You can rip me apart. August 15th, Discovery Plus. Check it out. It was super fun. We cover
it's my birthday.
Things. I can't tell you yet. Ooh.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So on to Cosmic Hoax. So as I was saying, Cosmic Hoax is the new Stephen Greer film. And what's really interesting about this film is that he really goes into all these details about how the government is building a threat-based narrative with the idea that UFOs or aliens exist. And so, it's a very interesting film. And that's why we have all these interviews and all the stuff that we're going to cover. I found this article done by the Pew Research Center. It's titled, "Most Americans Believe in Intelligent Life Beyond Earth. Few see UFOs as a major national security threat." Now, for the most part, I would agree with Greer because there has been some kind of weird agenda narrative. We don't quite know what it is from the government or from whoever. But so this poll is really interesting. So here's the questions they ask people. Percentage of U.S. adults who say their best guess is that intelligent life exists on other planets. 65% of U.S. adults believe that there is intelligent life on other planets. Percentage of U.S. adults who say that UFOs reported by people in the military are probably true, or the evidence is true. That's 40% of the population believe that the people in the military reporting UFOs, alien life forms, 40% believe that that's true. Percentage of U.S. adults who say that UFOs are not a threat to the U.S. national security is 51%. That's 1%. That's 2% over the norm, right? So like 49%.
Yeah, got it.
51% believe that they're not a threat, which is really interesting. So whatever the agenda is, it's not working on the American people. 51% feel they're not a threat. Whatever they are, UFOs, UAPs, not a threat.
It's not working yet. That's the point. That percentage might have been 75-25 2 years ago, not since they've started this slow totalitarian tiptoe, to steal a phrase from David Icke, of making us fear UFOs. We'll see where that goes. That gives me hope, Melissa, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, this is building, and will there be a false flag event to make us really scared? I don't know. I'll get into that more later, but like, that doesn't convince me that that percentage will change in the near future.
Greer in this film kind of hints at the fact that whole TTSA thing was a failed project. I mean, you don't really hear much of anything anymore from Tom DeLonge or, once Elizondo and those other guys all split up from the group, what do they get left? Tom DeLonge? Does he? Have you heard anything from him recently?
No.
No. He's on Twitter, like posting shit, but not really.
Yeah, but I think that I think that the film Cosmic Hoax, which we're going to be talking about a little bit more as we get through these interviews and stuff, I think that what Stephen Greer is trying to bring to the public is that we don't want this to get out of hand. Let's be knowledgeable. Let's understand what maybe some of these agendas might be. But I'm just hopeful that people are actually not going that direction. I'm hopeful. The reason I brought up that research is I thought this is great. Like, maybe humans aren't going along with the agenda. Well, let's get into the interview. Paula Harris is the person that I've interviewed. That's part of the film. She's one of 3 people that are in that film. She's an Italian-American photojournalist, investigative reporter in the field of extraterrestrial-related phenomenon research. She has a master's degree in education, is widely published freelance writer who has studied the phenomenon since 1979. She's an OG. She's been in this field for quite some time. She's interviewed military personnel, astronauts, and is most most of the people in this film and in this field, she's on personal terms with as a leading researcher in the field. Paula also has a very fascinating new book called Trinity that's just out.
Yeah, it's really, I read it. It's awesome. It has to deal with the first nuclear bomb that went off that we tested in the country and a UFO crash that was associated with that detonation.
So, Paula Harris. Paula, thanks for joining us on Cosmic Cantina.
Well, it's a pleasure.
All right, so let's jump in. So this whole podcast, we are really breaking down Stephen Greer's new film, which you are part of, called The Cosmic Hoax. And my first question to you is, there wasn't a lot of people interviewed in this film, and it is a fascinating film. Why do you feel that Stephen Greer decided to pick you to be interviewed for this?
Well, we have a history because I used to live in Italy from 1992 to 2007. And when I met Stephen Greer, he came to interview people for the Disclosure Project. And since I'm an investigative journalist, we rented a room near the train station in Rome, and we filed all these, they were Italians. I mean, he would have had to, translate, but we filed all these military people and who had incredible stories and witness testimony to UFOs. And he wanted to use that. So I helped him. I was a facilitator. And then when I moved back to the United States in 2007, I became interested in his CE5 groups and his CE5. So I've attended, we did one in Durango. I attended one in Crestone that was absolutely amazing, that brought the movie Sirius to light, which is my favorite film. And so the thing is that I already had the same, let's say, desire for transparency and truth that Stephen had. And, and the way he did it was that he walks his talk. He just doesn't talk, haphazardly. He brought all of those witnesses to the Disclosure Project. And I helped him also meet Monsignor Balducci of the Vatican. So I arranged that meeting. And he has his way of doing disclosures. So he knew me already. I'd already been on some CE5s. I do international work. So I think he just respects me.
And he trusts you, it sounds like. He trusts that you are on the same page with him.
Yeah, I'm not really on the same page on everything because I don't think we can just make generalizations. But I am on the same page, and I will be honest with this, that anything that might have a government disclosure come out of the government might have an agenda to it. I don't think a bunch of people sat around and said, let's tell the people the truth. It's time to tell them the truth. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in government. It doesn't happen anywhere. So when these things start happening, and I'm shocked because, I saw the New York Times stuff, but we have 10 times that in Europe. We had pilots coming to us. We have video footage. We have military and everything. And that didn't make the New York Times, but this did. And I'm just really wary of the timing and the agenda attached to it. So that part I'm in agreement with.
So are you saying that, and I've heard this before actually too, but just to verify, in Europe and other countries, the idea that aliens exist and UFOs are real, that's already something that a lot of those countries have come to terms with. But America seems to be making a bigger deal about it now.
Well, it's interesting you use the words aliens, because I don't think Europe really went into the alien thing. Everybody's talking about the craft. Even what was released on the 24th has no alien. I feel like saying, you can't go there. We don't know what it is. You can't really, but a possibility could be interplanetary travel. You could put it that way, which doesn't include an alien. But that was never mentioned in the 9-page report. It was everything but question mark. And I felt like saying, all right, at what point are you going to mention what is inside? And at what point are you going to delineate that we also have technology that's that sophisticated? Because I just wrote a book with Jacques Vallée called Trinity. And Trinity is about the first UFO crash in 1945. It took me 9 years to research that and 4 for Jacques. And that really did happen. And there was a UFO, and it did have beings on it 1 month after the atomic bomb blast. So how are you going to deal with that? You think you're going to throw the craft in the trash? It's 76 years ago. We've had crashes since then. You're going to throw everything away? So the thing is this, that it is obvious that we can replicate something.
Definitely. But what about other countries? Do you think that they have the same capabilities? Are they all in? No. So you're thinking that the American government does have the technology. Do other governments of the world have this technology, or is it
no, well, maybe Russia. I think Russia could, maybe China, but I think Russia could, because the deal is, and I've done a lot of work in Latin America, that whenever like the Virginia case, the Americans came and took the craft, and in Brazil, and in other cases where there's a crash near a NATO base, the Americans come and take the residue. They take the debris because that's the deal that they made. So in the end, I realized it was about the technology. And the reason why I realized it was like that is because I spent 2 years with Colonel Philip Corso. I was his confidant. He was not allowed to speak in the United States, so I brought him to Europe twice. He spoke in San Marino, and he spoke in Pescara in Italy. And I wrote the book, Conversations with Colonel Corso, because he told me so much about his position at the Pentagon of research and development of foreign technology, which is so foreign that it's not of this earth. So then I began to understand, there's like a battle for all of this, and it's, it's a matter. It is a matter of national security. But let me go on record as saying it is not any threat, because if they were going to do something, come bomb us or do something or cause problems in the sky or start a space war and all that, they would have done it after we set off the atomic bomb and after all the H-bomb tests in the Pacific.
Definitely. So do you feel that the disclosure is about raising more money to expand the military process so that we can have more weapons to go into space?
I don't think, the film has that we would hoax a holographic space war. Possible. But the development of weapons doesn't mean they're going to use them. But how do you keep an economy going that's based on a war economy? I mean, you've got to invent another enemy. But there's some good guys. And I am going to say that I do admire the role of Chris Mellon, who is a former intelligence person, because he talked about transparency. And one good thing that did come out of the New York Times and all that is that it made it okay to talk about it, so nobody's laughing. I mean, my kids never took me seriously until it came out of the New York Times. And I said, I've been working on this for 40 years, and that article changed your mind.
Right.
And they said, yes. And so you got to look at the positive part is that it, like Chris says, the positive part is the discussion is started. We can have a talk. You and I can talk. You're not going to laugh. That this, if it comes out of military films and everything, you're not going to laugh. So that's the positive part. The negative part could be the agenda. Why? So, and then could we have more transparency in that? Can you go into detail about more than, that they're just these unidentified things out there? Could you go into a little bit more detail and talk about the witness testimony? Talk about the experiencers, talk about the rest of it. It's not just a bunch of, UFOs flying around out there.
Yeah, I know. It is pretty vague. I mean, especially you and I mean, you've been in the space longer than I have, but I mean, this isn't something I haven't heard before. But I guess like disclosure is such a big deal to everybody in this community, because let's get on with the truth. I mean, the other part is, what happens if they do tell the truth? Are we going to go out in space? Are we going to join other alien races out there in the universe? Like,
no, but they're not going to tell the truth. Why would they? I mean, this is true for them to tell everything.
True, but like we got to progress somewhere, right? Besides the fact that
that what the story is, that individually, you or I, if we're interested, we're going to do the research and we'll find out the truth. and we'll put it together either in a documentary, or in my case, I just do a witness testimony. It's on all my books, word for word. I've got like 500 audio tapes of what's been said by military people, by astronauts, by people in the know. So yeah, that's disclosure, not anything that comes out of a government agency for me. Now, the UFO community wants it to come out from the President of the United States and all this. And I have never agreed with that. So I'll go on record and say, that's not where disclosure is. Disclosure is finding the witnesses of extraordinary events. And whether I have a friend who was a pilot with Alitalia 747. He's got 5 or 6 photos up close and personal of UFOs. Of course, he's flying across the ocean. So for me, that's disclosure. His photos, I mean, he's a pilot of a 747. So I have a lot of that kind of thing, which I consider disclosure.
And so what you're saying is disclosure, it comes from the people. It doesn't come from the government.
It comes from the bottom up. Yes.
Yeah. And what people believe. And, I think kind of what I gathered from that film is what's dangerous is people are being led by whatever agenda they are kind of throwing out there, instead of figuring out for themselves with some of the work that people have been doing for years, what the actual truth is.
It is. And at the end of the film, Melissa, though, I have to say, in the end, the Stephen Greer for me is a hero, because he's developed protocols that anybody can use. You can go out and in isolated areas like Crestone, I have 5 acres of land out there, and just meditate and see what happens. Most of the things I've seen have been in Latin America, in the Atacama Desert, in Argentina, in Colombia, and there, the people consider that normal. I mean, they look up in broad daylight and see craft. The idea of peaceful contact with whatever's out there, and I can't make any judgments in the way that Stephen does it, and the protocols he developed, I think is one step towards integration to cosmic, awareness.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's really up to the people too, right? The more people that have more peaceful interactions with whatever's out there, can actually bring the awareness of their existence, correct?
Yes, and also it's like almost a diplomatic thing. I mean, you go out in the Atacama Desert, there's nobody there. If something's flying up there, you go, here we are, and hello. You say, not okay, you're flying over our submarine, so we got to shoot at you. I mean, there's a whole other kind of thinking there. It's a thinking that maybe it's time to change.
Well, I mean, I'm fascinated. I agree with you. I think I'm very weary about anything I read in the news anyway. But what I would really like to see happen is that we put money towards joining whatever is up there. It just blows my mind that we have literally only gotten to the moon, and our rovers are doing amazing work on Mars. But it just feels that we started this a long time ago, this idea of the space race, and we're kind of still behind. I just hope that at some point, maybe the people unite so that we can get more money towards going further out into exploring what's out there.
Well, I studied this. I started in the 1950s. The 1950s had the Space Brother movement in Southern California and Giant Rock, right around Landers, California, and all those early contactees, whether they be Menjur Adamski or Feo Angelucci or George Van Tassel, they all had contact with people, with space people. And in Adamski's case, the message was, look, you people, if you would put the money into a space exploration, all the spin-offs, the medical, all the spin-offs from going into outer space would sustain your economy. But, he said, if you keep putting the money into the war economy, you're going to have to create the wars. And that was the message back in the 1950s.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, but people should study Adamski. None of the people think they should listen to his audio tapes. He said that all over the world, to all the lectures in Germany, to the heads of state, to the Queen of Denmark. He said that. He said, well, he did it also because Kennedy was looking at creating NASA. And so this was in the timeline a chance to change the economy from a war economy to a space economy. And you see right now, we're doing that anyway, because we have the space race is not coming from NASA. It's coming from big corporations. It's coming from SpaceX. It's coming from Branson. It's coming from big corporations that are going out there. They're going to make money. But if we could change the whole economy of the planet, and then Adamski's last words were, then you'll meet the cosmic cultures out there, because you can't help it, because you've developed a technology to go out there among the stars. Well, obviously we haven't.
Not that we know of.
Not that we know. I know. I was going to go. Yes, that's a possibility. I mean, of course, I'm not.
Never know.
I'm not naive. However, whatever's out there isn't our economy.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a total world shift. And like you said earlier in this conversation, there are some positives, which means people are actually expanding their thinking and their mind and thinking this could be possible, which is great. And then the other one is people just have to be careful of what agenda they're joining.
Exactly.
And that's really the message of this film. And I think it's very strong, and I think it's very important. So I thank you so much for your time, Paula. You are a legend.
No, I'm just a workaholic.
Well, we need you. All right. Thank you so much.
I think it was really interesting that Paula really does think that that the government could use this idea of a hologram to create this kind of like fake alien invasion. And then we have this emotional reaction to it. I mean, that was definitely one of the themes of the film, but she really, she's been studying this stuff for quite some time, and she really agrees that it might be something that they would do to kind of forward this agenda. I just thought that was interesting.
The Project Bluebeam stuff and the hologram, we know from a clip in the movie that apparently in the 60s or 70s, we already had that tech and it was already fully figured out, according to Jacques Vallée. And that is fascinating. So imagine where we are now, 50 years ahead of that. If they were willing to use that to trick Cubans into thinking the second coming of Christ was happening, what can they do today? I mean, yeah. I've heard of holograms where they can cast shadows somehow. Like, what does that even mean? Like, is it just part of the hologram? Or are they casting a shadow? I don't know, but it could get so complicated. Definitely could trick people. Again, though, like I said earlier, I just think people are too savvy today. I just would be surprised they went down that route. There's a reason why they didn't do it, because it's too much of a risk if it goes wrong. If someone's like, hey, that's a hologram, then like everything falls apart, like they're not going to do that.
Yeah, people's instant reaction to anything big happening in the world is, I'm not buying it. This is full of shit.
Right,
which is both good and bad, I guess, depending on what the situation is. But yeah,
something else that was interesting, guys, was that we've interviewed Daniel Sheehan on our show, and he was obviously interviewed in this documentary, but also the documentary made the point that Stephen Greer really wanted to point out who was part of this disinfo. And he had a whole bunch of people in there, including Louise. So I'm not sure if Danielle's really happy about that.
Well, he's not, because he wrote a very long, lengthy letter to social media talking about how he was misrepresented in some way and that his opinion is not the same. I understand where he's coming from. He represents Louis Elizondo and I think Christopher Mellon. So, of course, he wouldn't say anything directly negative about him. So the film may have portrayed that in that way. I don't know. I'm not going to be the judge. I'm trying to remain partial, but I could see why he got upset. He's definitely not 100% on Greer's side. And also, Daniel's talked about this whole false alien attack that Greer is always pushing, and then I tend to agree with Daniel actually more that maybe that's not going to happen. That may have been talked about and may have been an actual plan at some point, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen. And again, to my original point, they don't need that. All they have to do is cast the threat narrative strong enough and people are going to be all in on it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with Melissa's take on this actually, which is weird, obviously, off the top. Come on, bro.
Because I have and I'm in
Boston. But yeah, I do. There, obviously, there's some things I had strong opinions on what was happening with the whole disclosure thing, where it was coming from. This this isn't anything new by any means from Greer, but he just kind of laid out the case, and he called motherfuckers out too, which I thought was fun. That's always good.
The drama was high.
Yeah.
We can't tell all those names, but you should watch it. That's all I got.
But yeah, I agree with you, Melissa, in that there's definitely this is being used with some sort of agenda in mind. This whole thing, it's like that old saying of like never let a good crisis go to waste kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So maybe there is something happening, but it is sort of also being used as a means to further some sort of agenda, or maybe the whole thing's a hoax. I don't know. It's all up in the air, but this got me thinking about some things though, for sure.
I think it is naive for anyone to think that Luis Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, and the TTSA and everyone involved has our best interest in heart. Because just take this one fact. This is why I don't trust him. I want to trust him. Believe me, like he doesn't seem like a bad guy. And I don't know if he's a known disinformation agent, like Greer points him out in the film. But just hear me out for a second. Ready? After Project Blue Book, 2 things the government basically said to us: UFOs don't exist. And you know what? There's some cases we can't explain, but we probably could, and it's not a big deal. Regardless, whatever it is, which is not UFOs or aliens, just mostly swamp gas, it's definitely not a threat, guys. Don't worry about it. Cut to 40 years later. Oh, it's definitely real, and it's a threat. So, okay, So what do we know? We know they've been lying to us forever. And then the guy comes forward from the program that we didn't know about because the government was lying about it and says, like, oh, they're real and they're a threat. Excuse me if I don't believe you right away. Greer aside, my normal paranoid self is like, really? The same people have been lying to us? The same like shadowy government places where people do these lies is now telling us it is real and it's a threat when it wasn't a threat 40 years ago? Give me a break. And the fact they don't know what it is, come on. Anyone who's been researching this stuff for a while knows the government knows what it is. I feel like I know more than Luis Elizondo is saying. Like it's ridiculous and offensive, and it's naive to accept what he's saying. Now let me go further into my rant. All right.
Well, wait, before you do, that was one of the points that I really enjoyed in the film, was that they drove home that the fact that all these supposed alien, craft are doing is just shutting our weapons down, and that could be taken as a threat. But there's never any, I mean, not that we're aware of, never been sort of any sort of direct attack, really, has there?
No.
Opposite. They've showed incredible restraint. We fire at them all the time. Like, it's the opposite. We're the threat, I would say.
Like, there's stories of supposed UFO attacking small towns we've talked about in Brazil, but we'll go into that later, why that might be bullshit.
Right.
So, anyway, carry on, Josh.
All right, cool. So my favorite part of this doc, a lot of this information I've come across before. I really like the John Warner character, the son of the senator. But the part, obviously, I'm going to focus in on, like I said in the beginning, is the hoaxed alien stuff. There's a clip from Jacques Vallée in here I've never seen before. It was awesome. It was from, apparently it's on YouTube. It's from Thinking Aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove from October 1986. And he breaks down, the hologram stuff we're talking about, how they were going to use the hologram. Jacques Vallée came across information where it looked like in a document that the U.S. government was going to use a hologram on Cuba, and he hints at the false alien abductions. And then in his book, which I have, he points out he has a document, but he wouldn't give it to Greer, about these staged alien abductions in Brazil. It's all super fascinating. But what did I want to get to in this? Because I'm obsessed with this topic, because it's just so weird. There's case after case where people get abducted and they see like a military figure, or they interact with a human-like being, and that right away is throwing up red flags. I know a lot of people report seeing friendly humans when they get abducted, but the whole thing is just muddied. So I wanted to break down all the possible scenarios this could be. Okay. Military presence at abductions. We know from many stories that people report this, from the latest documentary, Extraordinary the Seeding, which is definitely negative, but multiple abductees in there claim that they were being sexually assaulted or raped in front of large groups of aliens, and military people standing in the background watching. There's also lots of reports of people seeing military people and not so terrible abductions, but most of the time you see a military person, it's like a bad abduction. It's like Greys are finger banging you, they're probing you, they're doing something kind of insidious, and they see military people in the background. That just screams something to me. How could you interpret that? You could be like, well, they're working with the aliens, or the whole thing's faked. Because what does Greer get into? And this is my big point in the end. He gets into like, he basically kind of surmises that all abductions are faked. Like all of them. They're all hoaxed. Almost all of them. He didn't say that specifically, but that's what he's hinting at. And I'm going to get to later what Doty said to me, which was definitely different from what Greer pointed out. Because the only witness he has in the film about this is Doty, but he says he's like tons of people in these programs. I'm not saying he's wrong or right. I'm just saying I think the program is real. What it's being used for might not be what Greer says. So anyways, April Diane Malloy and Naira Isley in the movie Extraordinary break down being raped by aliens in front of military people. Now, if you get into Preston Dennett's books, Onboard UFO Encounters, and you look up just other things, you find that these military people from a young kid, usually in a military family, end up joining the military, and throughout their life they have these abductions. And the abductions are mixed with military not. Sometimes they're brought somewhere by the military, and he sees reptilian beings, and they're brought somewhere. Sometimes he's just on a ship with aliens, but the military is mixed in there the whole time. What is happening? Is the military experimenting on its own people and its own families to work on their stagecraft? I don't know. Let's go on. So I came across this support group for abductees, and from Melinda Leslie, who's a somewhat famous contactee abduction person from Orange County. And it just was interesting. All these people were claiming the same thing, that they were part of the MyLab program. We've heard they were talking about the military being involved either during the abduction, or even more fascinating, this is where the waters get so muddy, is that they might have a real encounter that's love and light, where they meet an alien or they have a contact experience. It's not so, it's just a normal one where good things happen or just neutral things happen, but that is followed up by like a horrific military abduction where they'll witness military people. Bad things will happen to them. They'll get probed. They're raped. All the evil shit you hear about out there in the UFO world happens to them after the original encounter. So it's like the military is purposely muddying the waters, which leads me to my next point.
So wait,
what's interesting is... go for it, Melissa.
Do you think that the first one then was real, and then the second one was the military coming in to kind of create a dangerous situation? Is that
interesting?
Yes, that's what I think what Doty said to me, which I'll get to in a second, kind of confirms that. That seems what they're trying to do. Matt, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, for anyone who thinks maybe like any sort of military, they wouldn't do that during, they wouldn't do that to people, surely. Just think about how they like tortured people during the war. It was basically everything you just said was happening to people who were like at, detention, Guantanamo Bay and all those sort of places when all that torture stuff came out. It was all that you said just then. It was like horrible stuff happening to people. Yeah.
Yeah, they use, it's called PSYOPs. It's just, this is the version with aliens. It's the same fucking playbook they used for other situations. It's the same thing. It seems so crazy and out there, and like, how could that ever be true? But like, it probably is. It's just craziness if you get into PSYOPs. So I talked to Doty, and I met him. And he's a super nice guy. Still, when I met him in person, could not tell if he was telling the truth or not, but he seemed like he was. So I'm going to trust him. Super cool guy, great mustache. And I asked him straight up. I was like, Doty,
important.
No bullshit, you hot shit. What's the deal with hoaxed alien abductions? And he was like, and it was like, I feel bad. I kind of cornered him and came at him and like met him like 1 second early. I was like, hi, I'm Josh. Tell me about hoaxed alien abductions. He was like, okay, calm down, nerd. So I felt bad. So Doty, if you listen to this, I'm sorry, but I love your work and I think you're really interesting. And I think you're telling the truth. But what did he tell me? Directly to me, he told me, I was like, well, what's going on? Like, Greer saying like it's this mass thing. He wouldn't really comment on that. He just said it's definitely real, but it was used as a way of manipulating people. For example, he brought up an example of like people got on a base somewhere. He wouldn't say where the base was. They saw something they weren't supposed to see. And I surmised that would be like advanced tech that maybe seems alien, but it's just like something we're developing or something top secret. And what they would do is they would purposely scare the hell out of them. They would go, okay, you saw a tech that would look alien to you. They would show up at their house. They would abduct them, use like deformed people even to make it look like aliens and scare the hell out of them to make them think like it's aliens. but really,
that's right.
they're
Yeah.
covering up tech that's human. And that's what it was used for. Not just that situation, but other situations. He didn't say this, but what I'm guessing is they would also use it to muddy the waters on real UFO incidents. So if someone has a profound moment about UFOs, it was love and light, and they know about it, Men in Black or whatever shows up after the fact and muddies the waters and scares the hell out of them to make them think it's evil and dark for the psychological warfare value of it, of this threat-based disclosure. So that was really fascinating talk with him. So what are our options here now? It's all human. Every single negative abduction is human. Every single one of them is just aliens, or it's humans and aliens together, working together for some reason. I've heard all three theories. I don't know the answer. I'm leaning towards a lot of them are human. Like a lot of the negative stuff you hear about is them messing with people over their lives to seed the subconscious that aliens are a threat. So eventually they can take that and use it to weaponize space or whatever. That's a bold statement. I don't know. The last thing I want to say is, again, I just want to reiterate, they don't need to do a hoaxed alien attack, which is, I know, separate from the hoaxed alien abductions. I just want to say that all this stuff, they've already done their job, and all they have to do is keep turning up more and more and more. And next thing you know, we'll be weaponizing space and we'll have a war economy. But the last thing I want to end with is that one of the things that Paula said in the interview, which just came to me, which is actually what I want to talk about, was some of the famous contactees from the 50s, especially George Adamski. How do you say his name? He's a fellow Polak.
Adamski, yeah.
Adamski said the one message he kept getting was stop having a war economy and start spending money on space exploration, and that will do the same thing for your economy as war does. Mm-hmm. So that resonated with me, and I just want to leave my segment here with that's what we should be doing. Less war, more money on space exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Good call.
And that was when you watch this film, Carol Rosen, if people listening don't know who Carol Rosen is, she worked with Werner von Braun. And one of the things that Werner wanted to set up, and what Carol ended up working on after he died, was to set up peace treaties in space, because he wanted to create a space race where we were going to space, but it had nothing to do with going to war. And so she talks very heavily about that in this piece, which is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's a badass. Yeah.
It's hard to believe that everything negative that could be aliens is the government, is humans. I mean, maybe the majority of them are, but it's hard for my brain to wrap around. It's either one or the other. But I do agree with you that there are just too many instances where they see military people, and that they could be. But then, what about some of the other ones that you can't explain? I mean, we can't say all aliens are good.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, both sides preach kind of a black and white theory about what's happening, but I think it's probably a mixture of both, I would say. And that's not me just sitting on the fence before we go that route, Josh.
No, it's all right. I like that angle, actually.
I think there's a bit of gray area.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think after the story you're going to tell, we're going to think it's more human than alien. So go on.
Yeah, strap in.
Setting up, I kind of hope it's not, because it's pretty dark.
Yeah, this goes a little dark. And mainly because there's evidence of this. This isn't just someone's story. And I've seen the evidence, and it took my breath away. It fucked me up. I'll say that. I saw photos of this. Anyway, so during the film, like I said at the beginning of the show, Greer brings up, or maybe it was Doty. They both bring up the fact that Brazil seemed to be used as a bit of a testing ground for getting people scared about alien visitations and invasions and stuff. So, we've talked about in the past. We talked about Virginia. God, I love saying that. And there was an
Vagina?
Yeah, in Brazil. It's a place. Look it up. So there was another place too. There was UFOs buzzing around and shooting people, and it was crazy. So he specifically mentions. Greer in the film says that cattle mutilations, in particular, are I guess, some sort of secret military experiment.
For what though?
And well, there's a bunch of theories on this, and I think Christopher O'Brien has a really good theory that it's they're testing to see something about something that was released into the environment, either accidentally or testing again. I don't know, and they're kind of testing these animals, specific organs, to see how much it's affecting their biological systems, I guess. That's one theory. Anyway, so he mentions on top of the cattle mutilations that there's also these human mutilations. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna check that out. That sounds interesting. And man, I wish I hadn't, to be honest, because, well, let's get into it. Here we go. So this story takes place in 1988, Sao Paulo, Brazil. And the story goes, there's a couple of different renditions of this. There's one where there's a little boy walking along the banks of this reservoir called the Billings Reservoir in this town. And another story is that there's two fishermen who find this corpse. So I'll just go with this boy one because I've seen this one more than the other one. So the boy's walking along the banks of the reservoir, and he sees this group of vultures crowding around some big sort of dead carcass on the ground, just on the banks of the reservoir. So he gets closer to this area, scares the vultures away, and holy shit, if this isn't like a horribly mutilated body of a man that these things were surrounding. The boy immediately gets the fuck out of there. He runs to the police, and then the emergency workers, I think there's a fire, police, ambulance, all these people come and just caution off the whole area. They kick everyone out. They create this huge fuss for a while. The locals kind of like wondering what's going on. They basically pick up the corpse, take it away, and then shut it all back down again. I mean, open it all back up again, clean it all up, and never hear from it again. They said that the locals in the town knew what saw some shit was going down. Shenanigans were happening at the banks of this reservoir, and they were waiting on, we'll hear about it on the news. We'll see what happened to this guy. But they hear nothing. Nothing happens. It's basically the whole story is just shut down. No one talks about it again until 1995. So this incident happened in, what did I say? 88. 1995. Apparently some anonymous government official released a document to the press, and it was basically the file of the forensic file of the autopsy, and all those documents related to it, also photographs of the body. So it basically paints this full picture of what happened to this poor bugger. And man, fair warning to everyone here. Here we go. This is not pretty. So what happened to him? They did actually discover who this guy was from dental records, and apparently he was just a local guy. He had apparently suffered most of his life from epilepsy, which I don't know if that had anything to do with this. But he was also like a bit of a local drunk as well, so he had a bit of a drinking problem. But he was also known to come to the reservoir to fish. So here's what the autopsy of the body basically described what happened to this guy. Whew boy. His eyelids were cut away and the eyeballs removed. And as I go through this, think about those classic cattle mutilation tales and just think about how similar this is. The tongue was removed. The left ear was sliced off. The lips and the skin around the jaw and the neck had been excised, and a large piece of the jawbone was missing. Oh yeah. And man, I can't tell you enough. Like, please don't go and find these photos. They are just horrific. Just awful. I'll do it for you.
We will post them on the website, just to be clear.
Yeah. I've done it for you.
So you don't have to look for them.
You're welcome.
We'll actually provide the horror for you.
Yeah.
That's how cool we are.
We'll post it for you. Don't go looking.
Wait,
Yeah.
can we stop for a second? So I get the reason why the government would want to experiment, but it's so weird and precise. Like if they wanted to kill this guy and dissect his body, why wouldn't they just kill him, put him somewhere and dissect, like this is so random.
To put it back so people would find it, so people were scared of aliens. That seems to be the theme, right?
Could be. This is really specific though, and not just really specific, but
it's just weird.
Yeah, I'll show you how specific it gets. So, on top of this, skin was missing. There was a patch of his hair missing, like his scalp, missing from the back. But his, they noticed there was something missing from his brain, I think they were saying, which is crazy, but they couldn't work out how they got in there, maybe through the nose or the jaw, I don't know. Several holes around the torso of the body were discovered. They said they were like half an inch, a couple of centimeters wide in diameter. Under the armpits, the chest, one that went straight through his belly button, where his belly button should be. And the weird thing about it was also in his arms and his legs, through the muscles in his limbs. But the weird thing about these holes were perfectly uniform. They were all exactly the same shape, so the exact same instrument did this, and they were perfectly symmetrical on both sides of his body, where these holes were, like one under each armpit, one on the arms, one on the leg, one on each leg. So there was like this perfectly symmetrical, precise way this guy was pulled to pieces, for lack of a better term. So they said a bunch of the man's organs, his intestines, pancreas, liver, stomach, all that sort of stuff, gone. Don't know what happened to him. The only incisions, there's no incisions on the body except for these holes. So somehow through these relatively tiny holes, they removed all the organs from his body. Around each incision or wound, it seemed to have been cauterized, so possibly some sort of laser type apparatus. The whole body was completely drained of blood.
Okay, now
cattle mutilations.
I was waiting for you to say that everything was cattle. I was waiting for that fact. That's a big parallel. So it looks like they were doing it to both humans and cattle, and then just stopped doing it to humans. All right, keep going. Keep going.
And this is a classic thing as well. The colon on this guy was caught out. And listen, that photo was messed up too, by the way. I can't get over this photo. It's just really fucked me up. He was castrated. I don't know why they would do that.
I mean, at that point, why not?
Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot left of this guy. Like the photos show, because he had all these organs missing, his chest and his stomach were like just completely sunken. It was like really odd looking thing to have witnessed. God, I need some eye bleach.
Just don't know how do humans get it out? I
don't know. So even if this was, so they were saying as well that this area was pretty synonymous with dumping bodies because there's like organized crime and all sorts of stuff, but this one stood out, and especially because it was covered up as well to begin with. Because, like, what human? I mean, people kill other humans all the time, but how could you possibly do that? Like, what instrument do we have, especially back in the 90s or the 80s, that could, remove organs from someone in such a precise manner by tiny little holes in the body? So yeah, basically all cuts on the body, or the incisions or the removal of things, it was just, they just noted in the document apparently just how perfectly surgically precise everything was. Couple of other weird things that they noticed with the body, despite the death happening 24 hours previously, before they had it on the forensic table, the autopsy table. Rigor mortis never set in on this body, which is odd. They also noted the corpse did not emit any sort of decomposition odor. Like, it didn't have that rotting smell at all, like the dead body smell. the other thing they noted was that, it was found surrounded with vultures, but there was no evidence of predation or any sort of animal attacking this body at all. Like, it's like they just wanted to leave it alone. So it still had flesh and stuff on the bones, which you'd think vultures would be straight after. But they just left it alone for some reason. Maybe there was something wrong with this corpse. So one last thing that I'll note, and this is probably the worst part of this whole thing, is that when they tried to discover what the cause of death was for this poor guy, you'd think probably it was the removal of all the organs and stuff. But no, it was apparently the guy had died of a heart attack because basically they were saying he was alive as he was being dismembered.
Oh my God.
The sheer pain of what he was going through, basically, he had a heart attack because of the pain he was going through. And that's how he died. Yeah. So not pretty. Not
they
pretty
tortured
at all.
him. That's torture, man. Like, that's sick shit.
Yeah, it was just like, and the other thing, it wasn't just that he died from a heart attack from experiencing, like, he was awake during this whole, horrible procedure that was happening to him. But they said there was no evidence that, because all the holes and everything was so precise, there was no evidence that he struggled through the whole thing. So it was like he was paralyzed through the whole thing as well.
Oh my God.
So he couldn't move and basically just suffered through this whole thing until his heart gave out. And that's a mess. That's my story. That's the story of
whoever did that can eat the biggest bag of dicks of all time. Like, that's another level of evil. Like, not just to do that for like whatever reason, but to keep him alive while you're doing it. That's sadistic. That's weird. That seems beyond like CIA military stuff. I don't know, man. It's just like, a little boy tearing the wings off a fly. It was just treated like an insect. Just, it wasn't. Could be alien. That could be alien. I wouldn't put my money on it, but could be.
That's what I mean. It's like, not everything is black and white. Not all government officials are terrible people, and not all aliens are really great. Oh God, this story is horrible. Like, I didn't even watch the pictures. I didn't even look at the pictures. Matt did, but I'm just like, I just don't want to. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I think Stephen Greer has a mission to let people know not to get caught up in the agenda that all aliens are bad. And I think that is very admirable, and that he's really fighting for that. But you just can't go around thinking that everything is black or white. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
That does not seem, I don't know how anybody could even do that.
It's inhuman. Absolutely inhuman. Yeah.
Well,
so I promised you guys a little something a little fun, just a palate cleanse after that horribleness. So this is something that popped up, I guess, a few days ago on Reddit. And Reddit apparently now is just a buzz. Like, a whole bunch of different, like, unrelated Reddit posts have been talking about this. So it's been pretty funny to watch. But so apparently the story goes that 7 years ago, some anonymous guy who made like a throwaway account on Reddit told this story in some, I don't even think it was a UFO, subreddit, but he basically told the story of when he was from 12 years of age, he'd been abducted by aliens and had been taken on their ship, and they kind of, but these were kind of space bros. They weren't really horrible, finger banging, eyeball removing, reptilians. These were just, actually, he describes them. So basically he says, before I get into his little prediction, there's some couple of little like funny things that he kind of mentions, and it's really quite earnest the way he sort of spells this out. And I just found something about the way he wrote it that was like, I think this guy actually believes this. At least he believes this. So anyway, I don't know if it was a male or female. Didn't really kind of talk about that at all. but I'll say he. But he claims to have been continually abducted by aliens during his life. And it started in 87 when he was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. So he says, initially, though, he says abducted. He goes on to say that I was abducted, but it's not like that. Actually, you go willingly. It's scary, but it's exciting too. And they are somehow able to make you feel okay about things. And this is the bit where I was like, wow, I don't know about this. I don't like this. So he says it's not until later that you feel bad or like that you've been violated.
Oh, yeah. This happens all the time.
They have some sort of manipulation going on, right?
Yeah.
But he still thinks
really
they're pretty good guys.
To you and you're like, it's okay. It was totally fine. Like, we just hung out.
Yeah. He says they don't do a lot of probing. Not a lot. Just a little bit. And he says they don't do any raping or anything like that. Good to know. And he said that's Hollywood nonsense. They look inside of people sometimes, but they have machines that do that. Not really machines, but it's like a room where things get done. And he said the walls are, and he said it's hard to explain. So just imagine that the way the walls are kind of X-ray machines. So if you walk in front of this wall, apparently they can see into your body. They can see what kind of underpants you're wearing. Huh. So then he says he seems to describe this being on board this craft with other abductees. So it wasn't just him. There was a bunch of other abductees. And he was kind of witnessing their experience too. So he said sometimes there would be others there who would be looking, and the aliens would be looking into them too. They'd sometimes put them under, as if, put them to sleep, and cut them open, but not usually.
What?
Yeah, sometimes. But, they didn't do it all the time. They took some tissue samples from us, I think, and they never put you... Oh, now he says they never put you under or give you any aesthetic or anything. They just poke you and pull chunks out of you. It's usually done in the butt or the lower back.
Cool.
So, anyway.
No big deal. Like, yeah, it's totally fine.
Just a little poke, and they take a chunk out of you. No big deal. For that, he goes on to explain their language is kind of this humming noise, which is odd. But there must be some sort of telepathic communication. He doesn't totally elaborate on that, but just kind of says that they put thoughts into your head, but they can't hear your thoughts, which is interesting. He has to speak to them. They can't hear his thoughts, apparently.
Huh.
So he says mostly they just talked, just questions. They'd ask him things like television shows. They were really interested in human television, apparently. They'd ask questions about different things. He said, I think the walls, as well as being X-ray machines, also measure your reaction to things, which is weird. They want to study our emotions, I guess. He just got the feeling of that. They never let you ask.
This sounds like a human thing. This is a human thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre enough to be like, what is happening here? So he says they never let you ask any questions about what they're doing. Even once I got friendly with a few of them, they just do not like it when you ask them questions. They hate it.
Like most.
They hate it.
But okay.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
So these aliens apparently showed him some. This is interesting too. They showed him some video recordings, something like video recordings of different periods throughout human history that they'd recorded. He said they even went back to Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon humans, and he said they had this. They were like, somewhere between an ape and a man, like they were covered in fur and. Interesting. He said he saw the pyramids being built and other structures as well, and he saw numerous interactions with other people throughout history that they'd been in contact with. He said they're interested in all of us, in everything that goes on. They like things a lot in our culture too. They seem to like our music. Here's the funny piece. Bluegrass is apparently their favorite music so far that I've seen. They like it a lot. They love that African instrument that looks like a gourd with the 13 strings. They love it. Fucking go nuts for it. Bananas for it. He said they can't stand horns or horn music, and they also hate classical music and jazz. So not big on that.
Well, I understand the horns.
Do you remember when we interviewed Johnny Enoch and he said that if you drink whiskey and smoke cigars, like they hate it, they'll never come near you. So if you're drinking whiskey, smoking cigars, and you're in a jazz band,
Yeah, you're not getting abducted. You're safe as houses. You're all set. Yeah. He says he thinks the trumpets and the sound of horns almost mimics their language, and he gets the feeling that that's why they hate it so much. So he describes these beings as kind of the typical greys, but they're sort of that beige color like we saw in like, what's that thing? What's that movie? Fire in the Sky?
Movie? Fire in the Sky.
Yeah.
There you go.
So he's taken up a bunch of times. He said the longest he'd stayed up there with him was like 3 weeks. He mentions that there was 2 particular that he became friendly with, and they named themselves Jack and Gina, just so he could, chat with them. He said but he wasn't sure that they actually had different sexes. They kind of all look the same, which is racist. Now, here's where he says, here's the prediction, right? So he says, specifically about July 2021, which is what we're in right now, which is exciting. He says they will make contact with Earth on a wide scale in 2021. That's the year when they'll land here or colonize or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what their plan is. They don't seem to be evil or dangerous. They don't seem to be. Just taking chunks out of here, no big deal. Their planet is, so they told me, a very long way away. They couldn't explain to me how far. They said because it was too far for me to understand, and it was also close to the side.
I've heard that multiple times. Multiple abductees have claimed that same statement, close to the side. Very interdimensional sounding to me.
Yeah, right.
But
it
like,
does
another reality.
What, the side of the universe? The side of, like, what?
I don't know.
No, I think a parallel dimension,
of our world?
I think is what they're saying.
Close to our... Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
A couple other things he said. He says he doesn't feel like they don't have any religion. They don't need our oxygen or water or trees. He said they don't eat people. They don't want to breed with us or genetically engineer us. I don't know how he knows this for sure, but he's just kind of speculating, I guess. He said they've been visiting us for at least 10 to 20,000 years. So he mentioned the date, July, but also specifically July 18th, which is, we're recording this on the 13th, Tuesday, but when we release it, hopefully it will be July 18th. So we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen.
So 2 aliens named Jack and Gina are going to come down and expose themselves to the world. That's
like a full-on race. Like, remember that old show, Alien Nation? It's going to be like that. Like a whole ship's coming down, and they're going to basically just mingle
hang
with
out
us.
with us.
Yeah.
All right.
Like I said, I checked on other posts, and it was going all around different. Like there was like I don't know, like any random crazy non-UFO related Reddit thread that you could imagine. This was being mentioned. I specifically looked at the remote viewing subreddit, and people were like, I thought for sure they were going to mention this, and sure enough, there was a post that said, "Hey, can someone remote view July 18th and see what's going to happen?" So I'm waiting. Someone actually wrote back and said, "Yeah, I had a look. It's going to be a normal day. Nothing's happening." So that was disappointing. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So within this podcast, a couple things we learned. One, don't take all alien abductions or any alien interactions as a threat. And if for some reason Jack and Gina come down on the 18th, don't shoot at them. Just say hi.
Yeah.
If they come with that laser device, just fucking run. Nope.
Yeah. Or just offer him your butt and say, take it, big guy. Take a chunk.
Just a poke. It's just a poke.
Take a piece of ass. Yeah. Anyway.
Chunk in my butt, no problem.
Josh will volunteer for anybody who does not want to be butt probed. On another note, have a great night. And we'll see you next week. Stay safe out there.
Goodbye.